Hello, my name is Shivani and this is a channel where you watch book content and you watch art content. You would know that if you are coming back. If you are, then welcome back. If you're new, keep watching because this is going to be fun. I'm going to be talking about all of the books that I bought in the last few months, and I haven't done a book haul in a really long time. And then I'm also going to be telling you all of the cool stuff that I have in mind for this year when it comes to reading. I have some wish lists for reading. And I think in like regular parlance, you would call it goals, like reading goals for the year. I know. It's February. I mean, by the time I'm filming this, it's February. By the time you see it, it'll probably be beginning of March. But better late than never is what I say. So let's go see all of this good stuff. Before we go ahead, you know what you have to do? You have to subscribe or like or comment, because I don't want this to be a one-sided conversation. So let me know if you've read any of these books. Let me know if you've bought any of these books, or if you want to buy, or if you're curious. You know what I'm saying. Just talk to me. Let's start the video. So first book I want to show you is this one. I have started reading one story, as you can see. This was recommended to me by the person who owns the bookstore Champaka in Bangalore, if you're familiar with it. Apparently this author is supposed to be really good when it comes to sci-fi, and I don't know if you know, but I'm a big fan of sci-fi. So I'm very excited about reading this, especially because they're short stories. And if you've been here, if you've followed my book reading journey, you know that for the last couple of years, I've been very excited about short stories in general. So this is something that I'm super excited to read. The next book that I have is massive. It is huge. It's supposed to be a classic. This is The Books of Earthsea by Ursula K. Le Guin. I don't know if this is a French word. If it is, then it's Le Guin. If it's not, then Le Guin. I don't know, but Ursula has written this book. Also, it's so beautifully illustrated. It is the complete works. It's the complete illustrated edition of the Earthsea books. I think they're fairly small. I'm not sure how many there are. I think I remember reading that there are like 10 or something like that. But it has a lot of illustrations, which, like a child, I really like. Some of my like fantasy books and my sci-fi books, when they have illustrations, like a child, I love them. I just love seeing like these little illustrations. See? I think every time a new book starts, there's like a illustrations like that. Don't be laughing at me. I'm sure you like picture books as well. Don't be laughing at me. So the next book that I want to show you is Anne of Green Gables. No, I didn't need any more Anne of Green Gables, but this is not about need at all. It's a beautiful edition. It has this little slip jacket, and then that's what it looks like. And it has these little indentations, like I don't know if it'll show on camera, but it's raised a bit. It's beautiful, guys. It is about a little girl who gets adopted by an elderly brother and sister who work a farm and live on a, I guess, farmhouse in like rural Canada. And this is set in early 1900s, and it's a classic. It's a children's classic. You can absolutely read it as an adult. So if you haven't read it yet, please do yourself a favor and read Anne of Green Gables. And if you don't feel like it, at least watch the series on Netflix, or there's this very classic version of Anne. I don't even know which channel it's on. If you can find your hands on that, that's definitely worth a watch too. But this is one of the nicest stories that I have ever read in my life. It's one of my all-time favorites, which is why I keep buying different versions of the same book. I have like a whole bunch up here. And once when I do maybe a library tour, I will show you. But basically this is my newest edition of Anne of Green Gables. It is gorgeous. There's this little line here which says, "Kindred spirits are not so scarce as I used to think." And I have such a special place in my heart for Anne. I can't even begin to tell you how special this little space that I carry in my heart for Anne and her kindred spirits. I feel like because of her, I started looking for kindred spirits in the world, and I wish Anne was a person, you know. Anyway, so I bought a new book. I bought another Anne book. I bought an art book. This is called Still Life Drawing by Alice I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce that name. But anyway, this is a really cool book because it teaches you some like basics of still life drawing. This was recommended to me by my sister, who also reads and also paints. And what's interesting about this book is that I never thought I would get a book on still life because I've never liked still life. But there is this artist called Sandy Hester that I follow on YouTube and on Instagram, and she does a lot of still life, and I love how her still life looks. Typically, like the classic idea of still life is this really well drawn apple or orange or whatever, with the light falling in a certain way. And I mean, I find it incredibly boring, if I'm being very honest. But when I see really cool versions of still life, like this one, even this is really cool, it makes me want to draw them. It makes me want to try my hand at it. So this is a book that I bought for that. This is another book that I got at a bookstore in Bangalore. It is called The Lesbian Cow and Other Stories. It is translated from Malayalam. Other than that, I have no idea what this book is about. I started reading it, if I'm being honest, I did not like it. I was recommended it, but again, I don't know if this recommendation is going to work because I feel like it felt very violent and very weird. But that was like 3 pages, so I feel like I'm being very judgmental of this book. I bought it because of its cover. I did judge this book because of its cover and its incredibly fascinating name, Lesbian Cow and Other Stories. But I'm not sure how I'll feel about it. I'm just being honest. But I'm gonna give it a shot because I bought it and I like short stories, so I'm just gonna give it a shot. I also specifically really like short stories that are Indian these days. I feel like they can be really interesting slice of life sort of stories. So I'm hoping that the first 3 pages are an anomaly and you know, I like the rest of the book. But they're very sort of indie, gory sort of stories is what I've heard. I will update you once I've read it. So the next book or books that I want to show you are these. This is the Brandon Sanderson Way of Kings books. This used to be one book, but now because it was like more than 1,000 pages, I think just for people like me, they sympathized with us and they said, okay, we know you don't like big books, so we're just going to split it up into 2. And that's what they've done. And I'm still intimidated by it. This is like 600 pages or something like that, or 500 and something pages. And I'm still intimidated by it. But as you can see, I'm more than halfway through. I'm really enjoying it. However, it is unbelievably slow. So what is this book about? This is epic high fantasy. There's going to be, I think, 10 parts or 10 books. It's supposed to be a 10-book sort of series. I think it's going to take me as long as like it takes for the author to write, because it is so slow, but it's amazing. I love the world building. There are times when I'm almost feeling like it feels like how I felt when I was reading Game of Thrones, because there's so many different people that you're learning from. There's so many different like houses and so many different worlds, and yeah, I'm very excited about this book, but I'm also very intimidated by this book still because it's very slow. There's a whole bunch of things happening in this book that, like, I don't even know how to start explaining it. Maybe once I finish reading it, I can come here and explain it to you, because right now I am lost. But it's, like I said, it's really good so far. So yeah, I'll come back and update you. Alright, so the next book that I have for you is a short story book. It's called Stories of Motherhood. I've read, I think, although it shows here, I've actually read like just one story and I really enjoyed it. This is just assorted stories, I think from sort of the modern era in the 1900s and now. Perhaps it just says Everyman's Pocket Classics, so I'm assuming they're classics. I haven't really looked it up. I just, when I bought this book, it was short stories, so I was like, yeah. And then I bought it also because it is about motherhood, and it's not something that I am not a mom, and I'm not sure I ever will be. So I don't know. I feel like this is something that I wanted to read just to kind of be in the head of a parent, especially from these short story, slice of life sort of perspectives. So yeah, that's sort of the reason why I bought this. The next book I want to show you is this one. This is The Creative Act by Rick Rubin. It is a lovely book. It is all over the internet. Honestly, all the celebrities are reading it. Everybody's like, honestly, all over the internet, everybody's reading it. I actually started listening to this book as an audiobook, but then when I was in the store, I liked the audiobook so much that I was like, I'm gonna get the actual book as well. And it's a nice, very solid looking edition. So this is really about, it's the author's ideas and thoughts about how to be a creative being in this increasingly chaotic and capitalistic world. It is not necessarily a lot of like lecturing, but it's just his thoughts on how to be creative, how to sort of be in communion with your creative self. That's sort of what Rick Rubin is getting at in this book, and it's pretty cool. So I would fully suggest you guys picking it up. I think I've only just started it. All of these books, honestly, when I buy them, I get into them almost immediately, and then I take breaks. And yeah, that's one of the things that we're going to talk about in my reading goals for the year. So I'm not going to preempt it. Well, I have preempted it. But anyway, so the point is that this book is, I think, going to be good. I'll come back and update you. My very favorite book from the season is this one. I mean, it's a beautiful version of Bel Canto, which is written by my favorite author, one of my favorite authors, whose name is Anne Patchett. I will admit that I like her non-fiction better than her fiction, although her fiction is kick-ass too. But this one is Bel Canto, which is, I think, one of the books that kind of rose her to fame. She'd been writing for a while, I think, up to that point, but Bel Canto is the one that actually became her launching pad of sorts. It is about a bunch of hostages in a hotel, I think in South America. I think that's the premise. It's super, super, super cool because it has a bunch of annotations by her. I just fell for this book when I saw the very first page of this book where she says, Carl and I were dating when I wrote this novel. And then there's this little note that she's left there. And I was just like, oh my God, am I going to get to hear about Anne beyond the story of this book? And yes, I would, because look at that, like each of these pages have little notes from her, little annotations about her own writing sometimes, but also about the plot, about, I don't know, I haven't actually read the book, but I'm super excited to read this book. I almost feel annoyed that I'm reading a couple of other books, so I can't get to this. Like, yes, I'm reading a couple of other books. I'm reading Way of Kings, and I'm reading two other books that I can't remember right now, one audiobook and one other book. So I don't want to pile this onto, because I want to give it like its own special time. But yeah, I'm super excited to get to this. I will let you know how it goes. It is now time to do reading goals. Let's go. Okay, so book goals and book intentions, what it is and what it's not. Let's start with that. What is it? So for me, a book goal or a reading goal or a reading intention, it's something that I want to do for myself, because reading is deeply personal to me. It's something that I absolutely love. It's totally me and mine only, and of course yours, because I read it with you. But it isn't pressurizing, it isn't stressful, and I want to keep it that way. I want to keep reading interesting and fun. Yes, I want to read a variety of books, and yes, I want to expand how I read, but that's a wish list. So I hold my wish list very loosely. So what is it not? What is this book goal not? It is not anything that is stressful. It is not a sport. It's not competitive. It's not a challenge. It's not anything that is excessive. Like, it's not something that I must do because I'll be in trouble. Because no, thank you. I already have a love and an art that I've turned into a profession, which, by the way, is going really well and I love. But I don't want everything to become a profession. I don't want everything to be competitive. I don't want everything to become a big challenge in my life. I am ambitious, yes, but I would like to leave that to my career. Right now, in this space where Books are the loves of my life, the things that I turn to when I need solace, when I need a hug, when I need escape, when I need any of those things. I am not going to turn it into something like really stressful. So then what is my reading intention or wish list for the year, right? Let's talk about that. This is what it is. It's all in a jar. Okay, before we get to the jar, I want to talk to you about what's missing. That's what will inform what I do want to do. What's missing to me in my reading practice or my reading space right now is that I don't read enough physical books. I talked about this last year too. I talked about having a crazy big library, a home library, where I had a ton of books that I just hadn't read yet. And I also realized this because somebody came home the other day and they said, "Ooh, this is a lot of books," and they weren't a reader. And they said, "How many of these have you read?" And I was like, "Oh my God, I haven't read too many at all because I keep buying books because I'm a book lover. That's what I do. But I end up doing a lot of my reading on a device, not with physical books, which I want to change, I think. Also, earlier this year, my first book that I read actually this year was The Vegetarian. It was a borrowed book, and because it was borrowed, I was reading it physically. And I actually really enjoyed having a book in my hand, but I realized it was making me uncomfortable. And then it horrified me because I was like, am I avoiding reading the books in my library, although I'm buying continuously? Am I reading only digitally and not physically because I'm uncomfortable with physical books? That's just insane. But I think it's true. I think there's a part of me that isn't reading physical books because I find it uncomfortable, and I'm uncomfortable with that uncomfortable thought. So I'm actually going to change that this year, or I'm going to attempt to change it. So the goal is very similar to my last year's goal. I wasn't able to do much about it because it was my first year of being an entrepreneur and a full-time artist, and life was hectic. But hopefully it can somewhat go well this year. I have this jar that I have employed to help me through this. I was inspired by a booktuber called Emily Fox, who is someone I follow pretty regularly, and she does a read it or unhaul it jar full of chits that she picks up and she vlogs and things like that. I'm not going to be doing that because I'm not going to unhaul a lot of this stuff, and I'm not fully committing, and I'm not as serious as she is about her book goals. But for me, I do want to get prompts. I want to get prompts because when I look at my library, honestly, my home library, I'm so petrified because there's so much. I want to read everything, and I don't want to read anything all at once because there's just a lot of books. And so one of the things that I want to do was I wanted somebody or something to give me a prompt, and I decided to use this as a prompt. These have really colorful chits, sort of like whatever's happening in the background of me, but these have colorful chits that I have written in. I'll show you some of them. This is different categories. I'm going to take out one of each category so that I can read out some examples. So for example, this one is classics. It's got 3 options. It's got Sherlock Holmes, Great Expectations, or Frankenstein. So it doesn't mean that I have to read all 3. It just means that when I pick up a chit, I can read any one of them. Why have I done it like this? Because I'm a mood reader. I'm afraid that if I just put one book in a chit and pick it up and I don't want to read it, I just won't read it because it's just not the mood that I'm in. And if that's the case, then I just won't end up reading it, and there's just no point of this challenge, you know. So I'm going to make it easier for myself, and I'm going to give myself options for each of these. Similarly, I have, this is a reread chit where I've written Anne of Green Gables, 20th Wife, or The 13th Tale. All 3 books that I really love, and I don't know if I'll ever get to rereading them if I don't give myself this prompt. So again, lots of choices within a chit. This yellow one is the new or unread category. This is stuff that I very recently bought, but I may never get to if I don't prompt myself into it. So this is Everything That I Know About Love, which is a book that I bought very recently. There is Bel Canto, which I showed you just now, and then there's Cocktails and Camels, which is something that I got a couple of years ago as a gift, but I haven't gotten to yet. And then we have short stories, because Jesus Christ, I need to get to that stuff. I have bought so many short story books in the last few years, but I just haven't read as many as I have bought. So I want to get to that. And then I have the pink category, which is the really old books category. This is where there are books that have been with me for like over 5, 6, 7, 8 years, and I just haven't read them, and I feel like just with this one I want to make a decision on whether it stays or it goes. So I have a bunch of these chits and I have a bunch of these books, and I want to decide if I pick up that book, I want to read it and see if I should unhaul it, because there's a reason why it's been sitting there for like more than 5 years and I just haven't touched it. And I want to know if that's because it's not a good book, and if I'm not that sort of reader anymore, because you change as a reader, your tastes change as a reader, you know. But it's just sitting there in my library taking up space. So I want to make sure that I try to read it, I attempt to read it, and if it doesn't work out, then I unhaul it. I want to say that I want to attempt about 10 books this year from this jar. I have multiple choices, it's really colorful, I have a whole jar physically, so it should go well. But like I said, this is not a challenge, this is not a sport, it's just a wish list that I have. I hope that at the end of this, books get read from my home library, but I also definitely hope that I fall in love with reading an actual paperback book again. That is my wish list. With that, I will say thank you for being with me for this whole video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you liked the haul, and I hope you liked all of my ideas about book goals and reading intentions. I want to know what your book reading intentions are for the year. Are you thinking about reading a couple of books? Are you thinking about something specific when it comes to reading books? Let me know in the comments below. I'm really wanting to know. That's it from my end. I'm gonna go, and I will see you in my next video. See you here soon. Bye.